Okay, part 6. The Royal Academy's dedication ritual. Hildebrand and his entourage took their leave, then we did the same, entrusting the remaining preparations to Hartmut and returning to the Ehrenfest dormitory. While I was getting changed into my ceremonial robes, I received an ordinance from Hildebrand, who had since finished his report to the king. We were being summoned to explain the circumstances of the ceremony to the king himself, meaning we had to make our way to the auditorium sooner than planned. And so we started down the halls once again, Wilfred and everyone else looking sick to their stomachs. We met up with Dunkelfelger along the way. "Oh my," Hannelore says, surprised. "Lord Wilfred and Lady Charlotte are wearing temple clothes as well, I see." "These are formal clothes within the temple," I explained. "My siblings have their own since they perform religious ceremonies back at Ehrenfest. Under normal circumstances, all participants would need to be dressed in such robes, and we have relaxed the standards due to the lack of time." Hannelore merely blinked at my response. Not long after we arrived at the auditorium, we met with the royal family and the Sovereign Knights Order. "Aren't there a few too many royals here?" I could recognize Eglantine, Anastasius, and Stitcheswald for obvious reasons. Adolphine was also participating as the fiancée of royalty. However, there were two royals whom I was meeting for the first time. The first, an older man, was the king. The second, a younger woman, was presumably Stitcheswald's wife. Lady Rosemine, Prince Hildebrand informed me that, "I understand your impatience, Roblet, but stand down," the king interjected. "Greetings come first." The Sovereign Knight Commander clearly wanted to interrogate me, but nobles took formalities very seriously. First-time greetings were the priority. Dunkelfelger performed their greetings, then those of us from Ehrenfest knelt before the king. I was acting as our duchy's representative since I was in charge of our joint research. "Zent Troraqual, may I pray for a blessing and appreciation of this serendipitous meeting ordained by the harsh judgment of Aeviglade, the god of life." Okay, there's the king. Just as archdukes and archduchesses were addressed as obs, it was proper to put Zent before the name of a king. After finishing my greeting, I received permission to stand and took a closer look at Troraqual. He had silver hair tinged with blue, much like Hildebrand. So Anastasius and Stitcheswald's mother must be blonde then. Okay. While his facial features made him resemble Anastasius, though he looks extremely unwell and practically reeks of rejuvenation potions. His obvious exhaustion and the cloy of rejuvenation potions hanging over him immediately brought my first time seeing Ferdinand to mind. They didn't look very much alike, but when Troraqual gazed downward, the resemblance was definitely there. Maybe it was their hair being a similar length? I could tell at a glance that he's pushing himself extremely hard. As I continued to examine Troraqual, he gave me a somewhat contemplative look and then said, "Ehrenfest, I asked for an explanation as to why guard knights cannot enter the ceremonial hall. The reasons are as I described to Prince Hildebrand. I first proposed that the royal family take part because I sincerely believed it is important for you all to experience a true religious ceremony. But I am not trying to force your hand by any means." "Rosemine," Anastasius barked, "this is not my villa nor the underground archive. You stand before the king." He was telling me to dress things up more like a noble should, but I could only tilt my head in response. How do you say accept my terms or leave in noble speech again? Even then, if you said it in noble speech, that would still be considered rude. I was planning to give all the mana we gathered to the royal family, so having them participate would make that part more convenient, but we didn't actually need them. We could do the joint research ourselves. In fact, not having them present would make things a lot easier for us. As I was mulling over what to say, the Zent waved Anastasius away. "We are the ones who asked to participate in the ceremony. I do not mind as long as those with malice can indeed be removed." "I implore you to reconsider, Zent," came an unfamiliar voice. "I do not believe that a means of identifying those with malice truly exists." "Yes, we do. Shutsaria's shield." After seeing how Hildebrand and everyone else had reacted earlier, I wasn't surprised. Even if the royal family wanted to participate, their guard knights would never allow it. I could just stay silent and wait for them to convince the king. As I thought that, however, the Sovereign Knight Commander Roblet crossed his arms and looked down at me. "Lady Rosemine, is this shield you speak of the translucent dome that appeared during the attack on the Introductory Tournament last year?" "Yes." I nodded in response, seeming to recall just how much my Shizaria's shield made to protect the students had stood out back then. Roblet continued, "This is the first time I'm hearing that the shield can detect those of malice, but I can confirm that it is impervious to attacks. The king should be perfectly safe inside it." He had evidently seen the shield somewhere else before. I wonder where. I stared at the Knight Commander in wide-eyed surprise. At no point had I expected the very man who knew that Ferdinand was a seat of Adalgisa and who treated everyone from Ehrenfest with suspicion to acknowledge the usefulness of my shield. Although your word as the Knight Commander holds much weight, we cannot act on it alone, one knight said. At the very least, please allow us to test this shield with our own attacks. Okay. The royal family looked to me for my response. I understood their desire to confirm that the shield worked as suggested. If doing that will convince you, then be my guest, I said. Thus, it was decided that the Sovereign Knight's Order would provide a demonstration for the royal family. Everyone distanced themselves from me, after which I produced a shield just big enough for one person. I wasn't sure how strong the knight's attacks were going to be, so I put my all into maintaining it for the sake of my own safety. Go forth, loyalitet, whatever. The king said to his guard knight, the man who had suggested this test to begin with. Do as you must. After morphing his staff into a sword, loyalitat, whatever, however you pronounce the stupid word. Sometimes I'm like, what the fuck am I even saying? Started with a noticeably restrained attack. His first blow must have been just to test the waters. He was immediately blown back by a gust of wind. There were murmurs of surprise, and from there the other knights started trying to destroy Shitsuriya's shield as well, using a variety of weapons. Gradually, more and more joined in, and their attacks became increasingly intense. Thankfully, I was completely safe inside my shield, channeling my mana like it was nothing. I was genuinely more concerned about the knights. Isn't that using your mana, girl? Who were getting increasingly wounded as the shield continued to throw them back and deflect their attacks. As expected, Lady Rosemine's shield of Shitsuriya is invincible. How absolutely wonderful. I was informed that it blocks an attack from none other than Lord Hyshitz himself. Verily, I am moved to be seeing it with mine own eyes. Hartman and Clarissa were trembling with excitement while the Dunkelfelger knights were watching with bated breath, thoroughly enjoying this test as they would a game of dinner. I couldn't decide who was worse. Just how long is this going to continue, I wonder? No sooner had that thought crossed my mind than Roblet gave an instruction to one of the knights, who then smoothly entered the shield. I see, the knight muttered, looking around the inside of the shield with great interest. Those without malice really can't enter. He then turned his staff into a weapon, but what happens if someone attacks from within? I didn't know the answer myself, but the brave knight quickly changed that. As it turned out, such a person would be blown from the shield the instant they drew their weapon and tried to begin an attack. How interesting. No matter how many attacks they tried, how many offensive magic tools they used, or how much mana they fired, everything was repelled by my shield. The knights soon began to lose their will to fight, and it was then that Trollqual intervened. Enough. We have seen what we needed to see. It is inconceivable that such a resilient shield would succumb to mere apprentices of the Royal Academy. Those are apprentices? Really? Indeed, we had proven the strength of my shield, but those who had taken part were now in an absolute terrible state. Lord Zet Trollqual, I wish to grant Hellschmir's healing to those of the Sovereign Knight's Order, I said. Would you permit me? That would be appreciated, but do you not mind? They are many in number, so it will require a lot of mana. I shall use Flute-Trained Staff, which will make the expense almost insignificant. We will soon need the knights to guard the auditorium, so I expect the retainers of other duchies to protest as well. Using my ring would require me to be close enough to the knights so I could touch them. Fleur-trained staff didn't have that requirement, and it would allow me to heal a bunch of people at once. After securing the king's permission, I produced Flute-trained staff and granted the knights Hellschmir's blessing. I then presented the potions we had prepared and attempted to hand them out, saying that I planned to distribute them to the participating nobles. You intend to give bottles of strange liquid to other duchies? Bravo explained. This was the first time that someone had suspected foul play. Or this wasn't the first time someone had suspected foul play. It is our duty to be cautious, loyalitat, whatever, said, but we need only investigate them ourselves, as we did with the shield. I myself do not suspect Lady Rosamund. Had she mixed something dangerous into her potions, then she would have given them out before healing us. He then took one of my rejuvenation potions and downed the entire thing in full view of the other knights in the royal family. Well, loyalitat, whatever, feeling a little sick? The potion is wonderful. It rejuvenates me so tremendously well that I can physically feel my mana recovering. Lady Rosamund, was it not quite an ordeal to prepare so many rejuvenation potions in this strength? I simply thought that as we will be receiving so much mana from everyone, it only makes sense to help them recover what they spend. They have endured many hardships already, I am told, given that they were required to play dinner to participate. There are many duchies that will consider these a great aid. With that, both Shitsuriya's shield and my rejuvenation potions have been tested and approved by the Sovereign Knight's Order. Better still, Dunkelfelger and the royal family have been present to witness it. Whew, now we can do the ritual without incident. After heaving a silent sigh of relief, I parted ways with the Sovereign Knight's Order and moved to the farthest hall. Dunkelfelger's Archduke candidates Lestalot and Handler would not be participating in this dedication ritual, as per our agreement. They were going to spectate and nothing more. We were going to be relying on the other duchies for their assistance. Those of the royal family, please line up here, I said. I will produce Jutsaria's shield as the entrance to detect anyone with bad intentions. We will then guide the participants ourselves, but they will each need to greet you all. Once those greetings have concluded, please move here to the center. A voice then announced that the participants were gathering in the auditorium and that everyone was to move to their specified positions. First to be permitted entry was a Klassenberg archnoble. He saw the lined-up members of the royal family and went rigid with fear. Buddy, I know exactly how you feel. Please do come over and greet them, I said, urging him to come forward. He came back to his senses, moved to greet the royal family, then followed Hartmut's instructions immediately after. The next person came in right away. The first person to face any resistance from Jutsaria's shield was an Arensbach student, who was abruptly knocked back. Ha ha! As she blinked in confusion, Ehrenfest's and Dunkelfelger's apprentice knights moved to intercept her. This is Jutsaria's shield, one of the knights said. It denies entry to all those with malicious intent. My apologies, but as guard knights cannot attend the ritual, we cannot allow those who may pose a threat to go inside. This isn't right, the girl cried, glaring daggers at me as the knights took her away. I'm not malicious in the slightest. It's Lady Rosemind. It's all a plot by Lady Rosemind. It's Jutsaria's shield. They've already tested that many, many times. I think they know by now. So yeah, it's you, the one who is malicious. In the end, 2 out of the 5 participating Arensbach students were denied entry. Okay, 2, so 3 of them were able to get in. Okay. Things proceeded smoothly from there, though several students from duchies on the losing side of the Civil War had to leave. I hold no malice, they would desperately exclaim, but they were from duchies that had complained about their rank dropping and their lands being ravaged after they lost the Civil War. Jutsaria's shield had rejected them, so they could not enter. Perhaps your venom is directed at me rather than the royal family, I said, trying to frame it as something more innocuous, though the royal family knew better than anyone that the Civil War had earned them many enemies. Either way, I must ask that you sit this one out. We cannot afford to have those who may be a threat in the ceremonial hall without guard knights. Once the royal family had been greeted by all of our participants, I directed them to move to the center. I then dismissed Jutsaria's shield and took a rejuvenation potion from my belt as I moved to the door. I should probably recover some mana, right? I've lost a surprising amount. Naturally, the Sovereign Knight's Order was made up of many strong individuals. Taking on many of their attacks and then healing them had proven quite taxing. Screening all the students had taken longer than expected as well. Maintaining the shield really did require a lot of mana. And now I'm about to make a chalice. Creating with divine instruments take a hefty chunk of mana, and today's participants are archnobles and archduke candidates. So there's going to be a lot of mana being offered, right? Feeling anxious, I stealthily drank my personal rejuvenation potions and stood by the door as I waited for my mana to recover. At the time, it hadn't occurred to me what repercussions this might have. Huh? At the center of the room, Wilfried, Charlotte, and Hartmut were giving an explanation about the ritual. They spoke of various things that we had formulated a theory that rituals and prayer were important for obtaining divine protection from multiple gods, a number of protections that Wilfried and I had obtained, the fact that our mana expenditure had gone down as a result, that Dunkelfelger could now earn blessings through a dinner ritual, and that we had hoped this ritual would change how everyone thought of the temple and religious ceremonies. Hopefully this helps to diminish all the bias against temples. Once the explanations were complete, Hartmut addressed all those in attendance. The dedication ritual shall now begin. Please kneel where you are and place your hands on the red carpet. There you will need to repeat the prayer stated by Lady Rosemind, the High Bishop of Ehrenfest. First the royal family, then the participants who had been sitting as directed, took a knee. Hartmut confirmed that Wilfried and Charlotte were at the edges, and adopting the same position, then took out a bell-ordained staff and rang it loudly. The High Bishop shall now enter, he declared. Right on cue, I made my way from the door to the center of the room, and stopped in front of the shrine. I then offered a prayer to the gods while looking at the chalice in Gadul, the goddess of Earth's hands, and transformed my staff, Erdigrul. It was a spell that I had read in the underground archive. My staff transformed into a chalice without incident, but the face stone was entirely transparent. Perhaps because I had been too focused on the shrine, there was now a divine instrument in my hands, but it hadn't required much of my mana. This is a bit unexpected, but I mean, hello, if it's completely transparent, that means it has no mana in it, right? That's what you're going for. Hartmut helped me set down the chalice, then we both knelt and put our hands on the red carpet as well. I am one who offers prayers and gratitude to the gods who have created this world, I said, beginning the ritual. Everyone repeated after me and offered their mana. In Ehrenfest, only a few people gathered to perform the dedication ritual, but here we had quite a sizable group. As we chanted the prayer together and our mana started to flow, it started to feel as though we had all become one. It elated me in the kind of way that festivals did. And then everyone's mana shot up toward the ceiling in a pillar of light. It was red, the color of Geduld. What is the meaning of this? Trogclaw exclaimed. I don't know. I expect that a portion of our mana flew to some unknown point in the Royal Academy. I said, this always happens with rituals done here. It does not happen in Ehrenfest. I expect it is something unique to the Academy. This is the king's first ritual, so it made sense that he'd require a little reassurance. I was sure that Anastasius had already told him about Dunkelfelger's ritual producing a blue pillar of light. But listening to someone else's account of an event was incomparable to seeing it firsthand. Seeing is believing, as they say. I watched the light while continuing to channel my mana, but I was soon interrupted by an almost hysterical cry from Charlotte. This should be enough, sister. Everyone, please remove your hands from the floor, I said. I expect some are beginning to run low on mana. Things had been going so well, I was actually a little disappointed that Charlotte had called for the ceremony to end, but that feeling quickly faded when I was faced with the aftermath. First, the archnobles from the Lesser and Middle Duchies stumbled forward and collapsed. Of course. The Archduke candidates stayed in their praying stances, looking sick, and even those of the royal family appeared a little tired. Charlotte intervened, but I still overdid it. Everyone, thank you for participating in the dedication ritual, I said. Those of the royal family and the Archduke candidates here today are used to supplying mana to foundational magic, but this must have been especially hard on the archnobles. We have prepared rejuvenation potions to reward those of you who have given us your valuable mana. Heart met the potions. I wanted to speed things along as much as possible, but I still needed to consume a potion myself to prove they aren't poisoned. Saying something like, oh, I'm already overflowing with mana wouldn't be enough to excuse me. It was about as weak as refusing to taste test your own sweets at a tea party because you're much too full. Having no other choice, I drank another potion meant to significantly recover one's mana. This isn't good. And I wasn't talking about the taste. The ritual hadn't been so demanding as I'd expected. At this rate, my mana was sure to overflow. I watched with a smile as the king drank a potion, and everyone else followed suit, showing surprisingly little resistance, all the while compressing my mana. But the rejuvenation rate of these potions is slower than what I'm used to, so I might be able to act fast enough. I desperately compressed my swelling mana, wishing that I could share it with the students so exhausted from the ritual that they were having to sit down. However, compression alone was not enough. My mana was growing faster than I could contain it. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead as I observed Anastasius and Sigiswell place a net with phase stones into the chalice. What should I do? I can't stop recovering mana. Oh, crap! This is not good! I gotta go! Bye! Oh, we're in trouble. Sister, is it just me or is your bracelet shining? Charlotte whispered, having stealthily approached me. We were on the cusp of repeating the blessing bomb incident. And I'm recovering too much mana, I whispered back. Either my charms are gonna shine one after another, or I'm gonna suddenly give out blessings. I need to expand a large amount of mana at once, but how? Charlotte looked at the royal family, who were peering at the face stones within the chalice, then at the students, then my bracelet. Perhaps you could bless everyone with healing? That would be a fairly natural way to expand your mana. I went with her brilliant idea immediately. If my mana was going to overflow and turn into a blessing bomb anyway, then I was better off taking the initiative. Rather than making an unexpected scene, I would make it clear that I intended to heal everyone, but how do I go about this exactly? The best approach would be to produce Flute-trained staff and heal everyone at once, but I still had the chalice out. Not to mention it was still packed with mana. I was pretty confident that the face stones hadn't finished absorbing it all. I can't make the chalice go away, but trying to heal people one at a time with my ring would take too long. I need Flute-trained staff so I can expand all of my built-up mana at once. I wish to produce Flute-trained staff separately from the chalice, I said. Is such a thing even possible? Charlotte asked. Surely you could produce 2 staffs? I mean, I know it's probably not been done, because I don't think anybody was ever had that much mana to do that, but is it possible? Surely it was, especially now that I was overflowing with mana. The old sovereign's records had mentioned producing the divine shield and spear at the same time. And I'd once seen Ferdinand produce several shields of wind. Besides, I really don't have a choice. Inaction would only result in my face stones lighting up in front of the royal family and all those Archduke candidates, then a blessing would pop out. I need to expand my mana naturally. Do your best, V. I opened and closed my fists, gathering my mana. It was recovering steadily because of the potions I didn't imbibed, so that time really was of the essence. Another one of my charms began to shine. Not another one! This is bad, so bad! Come on, Stat, make another instrument right away. Even apprentice knights can use weapons and shields at the same time. I don't know how it's done, but it must be possible. My desperate plea must have reached the gods, as another staff suddenly appeared in my right hand. At the same time, one of the face stones of my bracelet stopped shining. Charlotte inhaled slightly. It seems to be that time, so if you'll excuse me. I moved away from Charlotte and stood in front of everyone to make my announcement. Your mana is recovering, but not your stamina, correct? My mana has recovered as well, but I would not want you all to be stuck sitting on the floor. So, I produced my staff and chanted, Strike Colbin to produce Flute-trained staff. I must rely on Flute-trained staff to heal as many people at once. I continued with a smile, trying to sidestep the issue of my mana. My inexperience is a great source of embarrassment. I really was telling the truth about my embarrassment. I hadn't been able to judge how much mana I needed for the ritual. May Hellspear's healing be granted, I said. I prayed while putting my absolute all into channeling my mana, and soon enough, green light overflowed from the Flute-trained staff. Light shot up into the air as it had during the dedication ritual, and the rest of the mana rained down on all those gathered. Where is all that mana going? Hellspear's healing didn't actually do much to alleviate exhaustion to my knowledge, but I didn't care about that. My top priority was expanding my mana. With that, I'd granted everyone healing. Gone was the threat of my face stone shining obnoxiously in front of everyone, and a blessing bomb detonating out of nowhere again. I got into a real panic over all this, but now that it's over, everything feels fine? The phrase, all's well that ends well, was made for times like this. I wiped the sweat from my brow. Ferdinand, I've become a staff dual wielder. Hopefully one day I'll be able to make a ton of staffs just like you. I can feel the satisfaction of now being even a step closer to my mentor. Clearly the best move here would be to inform him by letter and receive a showering of praise. Did you even tell him about the dedication ritual thing? Because I hope you did. It was possible that the downed archnobles from Lesser and Middle Duchies had gotten hurt when so much of their mana was sucked out of them. Still, although Hellspear's healing didn't do much to ease their exhaustion, it at least allowed them to get back on their knees. I was just beginning to think about how this differed from the time I'd healed Ivara in Haldensdale when I heard someone mumble, Mestanora. I concur, Lady Hannelore, Clarissa exclaimed, her fist clenched passionately. I received exactly the same impression. Lady Rosemine's actions clearly parallel Mestanora, who was permitted by the gods to use all other instruments. She was on the verge of another long-winded speech, but I wasn't sure that I agreed. Hartman's state looked similarly doubtful. I do not seem to recall such an idea being expressed in the Temple's Bible. It is spoken of within old Dunkelfelger books. Mestanora is said to be the daughter of the god of life and goddess of earth, is she not? Egotine suddenly added an agreement. Some old books in Klassenberg say the same. To hide from the god of life, she received hair as dark as the night sky from the god of darkness, and golden eyes from the goddess of light. What the fuck? Are they implying that she's Mestanora in physical form? I swear to God, if that's actually a thing for this, yeah. Hartmut's declaration in the last book of her being a goddess would be spot on without them even knowing it. She then became the subordinate of Wind, the strongest defense of all the gods. She gave a teasing smile. Indeed, Mestanora is just like Lady Rosemine. She's not wrong. I have absolutely no idea how to respond. I speak in jest, of course, she said. Please do not look so troubled. Anyone would be troubled to be compared to a goddess, Lady Eglantine, I replied. How was I supposed to react to a member of the royal family, one so often mentioned in the same breath as the goddess of light, no less, comparing me to Mestanora? Hartmut smoothly stepped forward. I had no idea that such a tale existed. I find it fascinating beyond words and would certainly like to read it myself. After expressing his thanks, Hartmut brought this event to a swift close. I genuinely expected him to join Clarissa in freaking out and causing a fuss. A hasty conclusion that I was now ashamed of. From the bottom of my heart, I was grateful to have someone so competent on my side. Okay. I'm gonna keep going. Using the rest of the mana. That should do, Anastasia said. The face-stone-filled net was pulled out of the chalice with a wet plop. After absorbing the mana, the previously transparent face stones had turned red, the color of the chalice. Anastasia held them out to show everyone. We intend to use the mana gathered from this ritual to enrich Jurgensmith in its entirety. Each and every one of you has my sincerest gratitude, the king added. There were many small, proud smiles among the crowd. Some of the students had given so much mana that they ended up collapsing in front of the royal family. Partly to apologize to them and thank them for each of their efforts, I decided to reveal some information. What I'm about to say will be made public during the Interlogy tournament, but I shall tell those of you who participated now. Our research thus far has shown that to obtain divine protections, one should pray when supplying mana to one's foundational magic, as well as before and after putting one's all into things such as brewing or training. This is made even more effective by channeling mana into a protective face stone engraved with the sigil of the god whose divine protection one wishes to obtain. I turned to Hannelore, who smiled and showed the Dragoner charm on her wrist. She had apparently received it from one of her attendants. The apprentice scholars looked at the charm with bright eyes. Unlike the Archduke candidates, they lacked chances to pray to their foundational magic. In that case, we can pray without going to the temple, one said. I would have liked to change their opinion on the temple, but getting them used to prayer came first. Plus, perhaps adults will see the god-worshipping temple more favorably when their children started to earn divine protections. You say that one can earn more divine protections through prayer, but I have already performed the ceremony for divine protections, Orwin said. Praying now will not earn me anymore. He wasn't alone. Most of our participants had already completed the ritual, and their looks of optimism quickly faded. The king raised a hand, seizing the attention of everyone present, and then said in a collected tone, in that case, I would suggest granting those who are gathered the right to repeat the ceremony after their graduation. This will allow us to confirm the accuracy of Dunkelfelger and Ehrenfest's research. Everyone's expressions lit up. Orwin seemed motivated as well. Many of the students had years until their graduation. I was confident that if they prayed seriously, many of them would obtain new protections. Naturally, the 6 years will find themselves at a disadvantage, I said, but know this. Ob Ehrenfest obtained the divine protections of Libeskilf, the goddess of binding, and Gluckatat, the god of trials, after just a year of prayer, then wonderfully obtained a first wife from a duchy of a higher ranking than his own. You would all do well to offer your prayers and mana to the gods while striving toward whatever you desire. Leaking the divine protection that Sylvester had obtained earned me a few giggles. Hopefully that would make people see him in a better light. So much of what happened today wasn't according to plan, but I'm glad everything ended safely. As I watched everyone leave the farthest hall, looking satisfied, I clenched and unclenched my fists, confirming that my mana really had settled down. I simply seemed to be in the clear. Rosemine, explain how in the world you produced 2 divine instruments at once, Anastasius asked, as the participants were replaced with Ehrenfest and Dunkelfelger students coming in to clean up. The other members of the royal family were silently urging me as well, but I just knew that they wouldn't believe the truth, that I had completely winged it. You asked for an explanation, but I do not believe the process is that unusual, I replied. Even apprentice knights can use a weapon and a shield at the same time. Yes, but only after taking the knight course. You have done no such thing. Oh yeah! My predecessors were simply inspiring, I said with a smile. The record of an old sovereign in the underground archive mentioned the spear and shield being used at the same time. And I've seen someone produce multiple shields of wind at once. Anastasius grimaced, evidently displeased with my answer. So the weapons and shields used by knights are the same as divine instruments to use, Diggiswald asked. He was wearing a calm smile, but his features were noticeably stiff. The spell is the same, so yes, that is my opinion. Lady Rosemine, you certainly have a perspective unique to the rest of us, Adolphine remarked. Both she and Eglantine seemed rather unsettled, and not in a good way. It was probably best that I not say anything I didn't need to. Still, the healing was necessary, was it not, I asked? Collapsing in front of the royal family and not even being able to kneel is seen as a serious blunder. I could not have left the archnobles in that condition. I needed to prevent them from thinking that they had shamed themselves, and the blessing had clearly made the archduke candidates and those of the royal family feel better. In other words, it hadn't been a waste. Furthermore, I wished to grant healing to the Zent. To father? Although this is my first time meeting him, I can tell he is pushing himself beyond the limits of what is healthy. The king may have resembled Anastasius in appearance, but his exhausted demeanor and the sickly sweet aroma of rejuvenation potions that hung in the air around him kept making me think of Ferdinand. I was aware that they didn't want my sympathy, but things had to be bad if not even his standard noble poker face was enough to keep his true feelings hidden. My concern was entirely justified. It did ease our burden, yes, the king said. I express my thanks. I am honored to have been of use to the Zent. I'd wanted to add to be sure to eat and get enough sleep each and every night, but I had stopped myself. That was a sign of growth, surely. Putting that aside, what should we do with the mana left in the chalice? Anastasius asked, shooting a glance at it. The royal family hadn't brought enough empty face stones to absorb it all. Understandably so I'd stealthily added more to blow off some steam. I cannot keep the chalice for him forever, and we declared that it would be offered to the royal family, so I believe we should use it for the sake of everyone at the Royal Academy. Oh, do you have something splendid in mind? Lady Rosemine Adolphine asked, watching me closely, her amber eyes betraying her interest. Eglantine looked equally as absorbed. Let us give it to the library, I said. In the past, it depended on the mana of the 3 arch scholars and several med scholars, but for the past several years, Professor Solange, a lone med noble, was managing everything herself. Even the preservation magic has worn off from the archives, and the rotting of valuable documents has created a lot of extra work. Hortensia, the Sovereign Knight Commander's first wife, was apparently doing her best to maintain things, but they still were 2 archnobles short. I couldn't help them either, both due to an order from Siggiswald and because I needed to avoid registering with Schwartz and Weiss. I request your permission to use the mana to preserve these valuable documents and to enter the library myself, I concluded. The Night King thought for a moment, and then nodded, perhaps because the royal family now knew about the underground archive, which was absolutely of use to them. Very well, the remaining mana may be used for the library. We cannot all go there as once, so Anastasius, Eglantine, I ask that you see it done. Understood. I leave the rest to you both of you. We will excuse ourselves first. With that, the royal family and the Sovereign Knight's order filled out the room. The cleanup could not proceed while the king was present, so he had probably acted out of consideration. We all knelt as we saw him off, then began discussing our immediate plans. One moment, Anastasius, Eglantine said. I will send an ordinance to the library to inform them. Yes, thank you, Anastasius replied, flashing her a sweet smile. It must have been a look reserved exclusively for his wife, as he had returned to his usual expression when he turned to me. Hannelore will come with us as Dunkelfelger's representative. You will need to see this done as well, I expect. Hannelore flinched upon hearing her name. Wait, I'm going with you? Should it not be my brother? Vestalot briskly waved away the suggestion. It is better that you go, as you have already been entrusted with one of the keys. I will stay here and oversee the cleanup as Dunkelfelger's supervisor. Hannelore nodded and began selecting retainers to accompany her. I turned to my own retainers and did the same. Matthias, Lorenz, you two carry the chalice. The rest of my apprentice knights will accompany me as guards. Riarda, Brunhilde, you will be my attendants. Lysletta, Grisha, and the apprentice scholar shall stay here and assist Hartmut. Understood. My retainers here at the Royal Academy all nodded in response, while Hartmut alone looked at me in shock. Lady Rosemont would very much like to go as well, he said. Oh, but you are the High Priest, granted entry only to manage the tools needed for the ritual. We cannot allow you to simply wander the grounds at your leisure. Not to mention, you have so little time to spend with Clarissa, this will be an excellent opportunity for you to speak with her. I was trying to be considerate, but Hartmut looked exceedingly disappointed for some reason. He wanted to see what you would do with the mana. He wanted to see how that would go. We were going to be channeling mana into the library, not performing a ritual, so I wanted him to focus on cleaning. Wilfrid, I would like you to stay here as well, and represent Ehrenfest, I said. Once everything is finished, send word to Prince Hildebrand and have him shut the door. Got it. And so I started making my way to the library, leaving the cleaning to Wilfrid and Charlotte. I couldn't walk very fast, but I did my best to avoid falling too far behind Hannelore's group. There was excess mana from the dedication ritual, so we received permission from the Zent to use it for the library. I explained upon our arrival, having brought the chalice with me. Hortensia and Solange enthusiastically welcomed us inside. It seemed that the library's mana shortage was severe indeed. If possible, use the mana on this magic tool, Hortensia said. I understand it as being the most important tool for the library's operation, but my mana alone is not enough for it. As it turned out, Raymond had asked Hortensia all sorts of questions about what kind of magic tools were in the library. She had only recently been assigned here, however, and she still wasn't very well informed, so the two of them had started investigating the library's construction and magic tools. Meanwhile, Solange, Schwartz, and Weiss oversaw the daily operations. After looking into the library's mana requirements and reading the diaries of past librarians, we deduced that this magic tool, abandoned since the departure of the previous arch-librarians, is more important than any other. After calculating how much mana remains in the tool, we realized that it might run out within 1 year. We were planning to discuss this matter with the royal family as soon as possible, tomorrow even if we are so lucky. Then let us pour the mana in now, I said. Hortensia directed my retainers as they brought in the chalice. Then Matthias and Lorenz slowly poured the red liquid that was inside the massive face stone atop the tool, covering it completely. None of the liquid spilled onto the ground, it was all quickly absorbed. I wonder what this tool is. Soon the almost transparent face stone slowly became a veritable rainbow of colors. The mana we had poured onto it hadn't been red, so this didn't really make sense to me, but I didn't expect an explanation. Hortensia sighed in relief. The color is returning. I tried so hard to refill the magic tool myself, but no matter how much mana I channeled into it, nothing seems to change. I truly had started to fear that it would cease operating during my tenure, but now I am so very thankful. Solange was also glad. She noted that with the magic tool replenished, she could finally relax again. During today's dedication ritual, we received the assistance of not only Archnobles and Archduke candidates, but members of the royal family as well. That is why we had so much mana, I explained. I am glad that we have been able to use some of that to assist you. Anastasius and Eglantine checked that the chalice no longer contained any mana, then gave brisk nods signaling that it was safe for me to inform it. I was pleased to have helped the library despite how unexpected it had been. As we went to leave, Schwartz and Weiss hopped over merrily. "Milady, lots of mana! Gramps very happy." Oh no, wait. Are they talking about her? By Milady, they were referring to Hortensia, so she must have been working very hard for the library's sake. I was genuinely moved to hear that. Schwartz and Weiss are glad to have received your mana as well, Professor Hortensia, I said. Oh, well, considering how much mana the library requires, my contribution is almost inconsequential, Hortensia replied. She was speaking humbly, of course, since we were in the presence of royals. I smiled at Hortensia, and she smiled in turn. Anyone who was willing to work hard for the library was a good person in my book. More importantly, who is this Gramps? Anastasius asked, intruding into our pleasant conversation. We don't know. Hortensia and Solange exchanged looks, wary of the prince's scrutinous eyes. They didn't have an answer that would appease the royal family, it seemed. But in their place, Schwartz and Weiss spoke up. Gramps is Gramps. He is old, powerful. It was exactly the same answer that I had once received, and no more comprehensible, though their flapping ears certainly were cute. I gazed up at Anastasius and Eglantine, wondering whether the royal family had any ideas, but they both seemed just as unsure. What was that supposed to mean? Anastasius asked the librarians. He had presumably concluded that there was no point questioning the shoe mills. Hortensia and Solange both looked troubled. Professor Solange, you said it might be a magic tool even older than Schwartz and Weiss, right? I asked. Indeed, she replied with a nod, but that was only speculation. I thought it might be a named magic tool like Schwartz and Weiss, but none of the documentation we have mentions such a nickname. At present, we cannot tell what purpose the magic tool might serve or whether even it exists in the first place. According to Solange, the register that listed all the library's magic tools omitted nicknames and much to avoid any confusion when they fall out of use. Is that so? I mused aloud. But in the diary I borrowed, Schwartz and Weiss were referred to by name. Yes, but that was a personal effect, not an official document to be stored publicly. It seemed that most diaries weren't left behind for long. Hortensia looked upward, perhaps searching for memories of the document she had read while looking at the magic tools. I personally investigated the library's magic tools and can confirm that no Gramps was mentioned. However, we do know that it was pleased by this tool being refilled, so perhaps the tool is Gramps? I see. What does it do exactly? One could call it the very foundation of the library. There is no mistaking that it was created at a time before even Schwartz and Weiss. As a foundation, it must be an old and powerful magic tool, Anastasius said with a nod, completely satisfied. He then went to leave, but I called out to him first. Prince Anastasius, when will we next be going to the underground archive? You must inform us in advance so that the library can prepare. I was only here today because the king had granted me his permission, so it made sense that I was eagerly awaiting our next visit. Anastasius' brow twitched a bit, then he casually replied that there were no plans for us to go there again. Why not? If today's ritual helped you understand the importance of religious ceremonies and divine protections, there shouldn't be investigating the archive filled with valuable documents be your highest priority? Part of my rationale for getting the royal family involved in all this had been to quell everyone's dissatisfaction, but that wasn't my true objective. I wanted them to learn the importance of ceremonies and then be like, wow, we're going to investigate all the documents in the underground library right away. And the ritual went so well, too. Was there a mistake in my expert calculations? No one's going to be wanting to look at books like you do. We're going to be busy for the next near future, Anastasius said. We must enrich Jurgen Schmidt with the mana we have received. It was only natural that the sudden offering of mana would make the royal family very busy, and the king's sickly appearance was enough for me to gather that he valued supplying the country over reading documents. They no doubt wanted to get through all the mana and then take a breather instead of poking through an old archive. No, there really was an error, a critical one. My master plan to make the royal family want more frequent archive trips was turning to dust before my very eyes. But the Zed gave me his permission to come to the library, and here you are. Father said nothing of going to the archive today or of scheduling the date. I failed to get proper assurance. I made it all this way and fell at the final hurdle. I suck. Seeing me get depressed, Eglantine gave a kind smile. As you suggest, Lady Rosemine, looking over the old records is very important. But supplying mana to magic tools and divine instruments will have an enormous impact on next year's harvest. Thus we must hurry and act as soon as we can before spring comes. Have patience for now. As you wish. Despite my crippling disappointment, I was a high bishop. I understood the importance of the winter dedication ritual. I wanted to get back into the archive. I really, really did. But I had no choice but to wait. Rosemine, do you not treat Eglantine with far more respect than you treat me? Anastasius asked pointedly. Not at all. Were the royal family entrusting the divine ceremonies to the sovereign temple, I would want you to prioritize checking the documents in the archive. But if you are supplying the mana yourselves, then as a high bishop, I can hardly interfere. I was sure that I could endure a little longer without the archive. I didn't have a choice anyway, since I needed their permission to go inside. There will come a time when we must enter the archive again, Anastasia said. Until then, push it from your mind. Act only as if is necessary, and focus on preparing to make your research public. Is that understood, Ehrenfest? And you, Dunkelfelder? Heinelor recoiled at being dragged into the conversation so suddenly. Many will have seen the Pillar of Light during today's ritual, he continued. We are in no position to deal with the many concerns and complaints that will surely follow, so Dunkelfelger, address them in our stead. I expect you have the leeway. Hannelore shrank into herself and politely replied, understood. It was so sad to think that even though the apprentice knights were the ones playing dinner, Hannelore would be the one rebuked. I'll return to the auditorium with you to see whether they have finished cleaning up, Anastasia said. With that, we made our way out of the library. They seem to be finished, Anastasia said. Clarissa and my retainers were the only ones remaining in the auditorium. Even from some distance away, I could see that Hartman and Clarissa were passionately raving to each other while my retainers were watching from afar, of course. Hartman had been granted special permission to participate in today's ritual as a high priest, but that didn't change the fact that he wouldn't have been allowed here at the Royal Academy under normal circumstances. Even though he was engaged to Clarissa, it seemed that my retainers didn't feel comfortable leaving him alone with her. Though it's clear as day how much they want to leave. Lazletta, who was the first to notice my arrival, came over to give us an update. After finishing the cleanup, we contacted Prince Hildebrand, who came and closed the door to the farthest hall for us. The others were dispersed so that Hartman could speak without being disturbed, which is why only Lady Rosemine's retainers remain. We apologize for leaving such a difficult job to you all, I replied. Hartman was an archnoble, while the other retainers I tasked with cleaning were lay nobles and men nobles. None of them were in any position to stop the overzealous couple. Maybe I should have left Rayarda here as well. As I was lost in thought, Anastasius looked down at me and muttered, Then our job is done. He gave Eglantine a soft smile, extended a hand to her, and said, Let us return, Eglantine. Yes, Anastasius. And so the two royals briskly returned to their villa. Anastasius seemed pleased as he escorted Eglantine. Once the happy newlyweds were gone, I turned to Hartman and Clarissa, who were still very much off in their own little world. Hartman, Clarissa, it pains me greatly to separate a couple waxing romantic, but 6 bells will soon ring. Let us return to our dorms. They both snapped back to reality and turned to look at me. Lady Rosemine. Very well, it seems that we'll be off for today, Clarissa. But Hartman, I wish to speak with you even longer, Clarissa said, gripping his sleeve and gazing at him intently. Her blue eyes wet with tears. They really were like two lovers loath to separate. Hartman gave Clarissa a truly regretful smile. I feel the same way. Never have I had such a wonderful time extolling Lady Rosemine's virtues with another. This is so weird! They're bonding over their obsession with Rosemine. Oh my god, this is so weird. It's weird to everybody, except them. As they gazed into one another's eyes, I could tell that they were in their own little world once again. Hartman's disappointment at having not been allowed to accompany me to the library was nowhere to be seen. I really wasn't sure what to do. But then Hannelore turned to Cordula and called out her name. Cordula quietly said, In that case, if you will excuse me, and stepped forward. Clarissa, if you continue this, then you will become Abeglabe upon losing... Wehrman. Don't ask me what that is. In an instant, Clarissa released Hartman's sleeve and hurried to the very back of Hannelore's group of retainers. I could only blink in surprise at her sudden change. Hannelore smiled. My sincerest apologies for Clarissa, Lady Rosemine. Oh no, it was I who caused the trouble. We promised to meet again soon to discuss the introductory tournament announcement, then went our separate ways and returned to our dormitories. What was that? So, what did that mean? Could somebody tell me, please? Is she telling her that she's being clingy? I don't know. Anyway, I'll get to work on this and I'll see y'all next time.